Hi, Jenny. We're talking about Leo today.
Hi, Laurie. Yay. Our sign.
Our sign. That's right. Okay. So the sun is going into Leo. We're beginning Leo season. Do you know when that occurs? When the sun enters Leo?
Oh, goodness gracious. It's happening on July 22nd.
At 4:06 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
All right. So
Perfect.
that begins Leo season. And Mercury is already in Leo when we get there, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Yep. So the sun enters Leo. Now, what do we want to say about Leo season? Every year at this time of year, what is everyone doing when the sun is in Leo? What's going on in our hemisphere at any rate?
Well, Leo is a fixed fire sign, and so it's corresponding with the middle of summer. It's the middle chunk of summer. So it really is the heart of summer. And Leo does correspond to the heart and also the spine. So really looking at the central part of summertime here in the Northern Hemisphere, which means some of you in the South are dealing with the winter, but, but since astrology kind of came together in the Northern Hemisphere, that's mainly what we end up focusing on, right? So.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Leo season being in winter. That's a real stretch for my mind. But you know, when I think about Leo season, I think it is the time that people want to be out in the sun. It's so interesting. Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is so bright and so hot this time of year. And what do people do? They gather at the beaches. They want to just laze around like a big lion and, you know, pamper themselves in the sun. Yeah, that's so much of the energy of Leo, is that the generosity. I mean, what does the sun bring? The sun shines without hesitation.
Yeah, life. I mean, in a nutshell, it's like the sun is bringing life. So Leo is such a radiant, expressive sign, and it carries all those fire qualities of exuberance and just really being fairly extroverted and just bright and hot.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, all the signs have a really positive manifestation and a more challenging, difficult manifestation. And you know, when I think about Leo, I think about the playfulness, the warmth, the generosity. Those are all really the best part of Leo. The kind of the downside of Leo is you think of that sun getting too full of itself and too bright, and it's just overly exuberant and overly self-focused and all those more negative parts of Leo.
And it turns into, you know, egotistical behavior and that, all those kinds of things. And really that's just when it's cut off from everything else, because Leo, when it's connected to other things, it's shining not just for itself, but for all of life. So it is not meant to be a selfish sign, but when it dips into that selfishness, that's when you see the ego behavior. And that's kind of, Leo gets that bad reputation for that. And that is just when it's out of balance.
And sound. So now, are we ready to jump right into the individual impacts?
Yes, I think with each of those, we'll kind of paint the picture of what's happening in this month and what you can expect for your rising sign. So let's do it.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this, jump now to your particular rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, go listen to your sun sign as well. That will give you some information. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just open up this little chart, and you'll see we're going to start talking about those of you with Aries rising. Now, if you've got Aries rising, the sun going into Leo brings the sun into your fifth house. So that's where the warmth and the light and the generosity really wants to be expressed this time of year. And this is, you know, you can look back through your life every year in Leo season, this is where the warmth lands. And this is right in your fifth house. So it's really about your creativity, about how you show love. That's where the warmth is really pushing you forward. This month, before we go further, let's just kind of lay out. The month starts with a lot of difficulty, doesn't it?
Yeah, the very, very beginning is not so bad, but a couple days in, we start looking at some tension and some challenges.
Oh, that's right.
In the month. So there's a few days there, like I think it's July 26th to about August 1st.
Yes.
There's some challenge. Then there's a nice window, a break from the 2nd until the 7th.
Right.
It's kind of like like an exhale and a come back down, you know. And then there's another pretty challenging week from the 7th until the 14th.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's kind of like an easy, gentle kind of let down after that, where it's not so stressful. So it kind of is like a wave where it's like, oh, there's a tough thing and it calms. And then there's another tough little segment.
Right. Yeah. So probably the most challenging part of the month, I would say, is between the 7th and the 14th. Because that really, that's really a challenging week. But let's think about how this works. Where is the stress? Okay, so you with Aries rising, the sun is bringing that warmth into that area of your creativity and how you give love. But the challenge comes from the opposition when the sun opposes Saturn through this month. So there's a stress between how you give love and how you receive love, how you feel loved from others, from your community. That's where the challenge comes from. Right, Jenny?
Yeah. And some of that stress is just in the 5th house is a very personal house of you working on your creative projects and being playful and generous. And in this way, it's very personal. And then 11th house is bringing in your whole community. It brings in this much bigger picture. So that's where some of the tension is. Or I like how you put it, Laurie, too, like that tension between how you're able to give love and how you're able to receive love. And they're very much connected. I mean, they go hand in hand.
Right. And if you're not feeling loved from your community, from the others that support you, it can be hard to really express that generosity in a really positive way. So that's something to really give some thought to, that stress. And then, because what we really have this month is a T-square, that opposition between the 5th and the 11th for you, people with Aries rising. But then there's the T-square to the 2nd house. So that stress is going to put you into a position of possibly really questioning your self-worth.
Yeah, so it kind of suggests that these two opposite things struggling against each other. And so you kind of need to take action in this place of your life. And in this case, it's giving yourself the self-love. It's sort of saying, hey, I'm good enough and I value myself enough to go ahead and, you know, participate in this creativity and playful area of my life and to deal with whatever the stresses are I feel around my community that is presented by Saturn. So that's kind of a way to really work with these energies.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we want to point out, that this is a very stressful little gathering here. This little thing is quite stressful.
Yeah, it's intense.
But I want to just bring in the fact that we have a trine from Jupiter. So those of you can look at this and you can see there's stress between how I give love, how I receive love, and how I value myself. This might bring in issues of finances as well. But the gift of the month is that there's, you know, you really have an activated personality to bring to the conversation as well. Even if you might be feeling some of this difficulty in your self-worth, your personality is shining brightly. I don't know exactly how that works.
It just brings up that fire energy. I mean, we're in Leo season, and then you have this really great, the beneficial planet of Jupiter in your 1st house is kind of accentuating the fieriness of your nature. I mean, with Aries rising, you are naturally wired to be that fiery, exuberant person and to be a leader, really.
One of the things that I think when I look at this is, okay, so you might be feeling this stress in your community and how you want to be generous and give love, but you can't afford it. You know, the second house. You can't afford it. But oh well, you've got this exuberance that you can bring to the table, even if you can't afford to pick up the tab at the restaurant. You know, you still know that you've got a gift of your own personality to bring to the table anyway. And I think that's kind of a sweet thing right there.
Yeah. So these energies you're going to be working with through the month. So those difficult periods, you can tap into that beneficial planet of Jupiter in the first house and know that you're on the right track.
Yeah. And let's point out one more thing, just so that you're really aware of it. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably watch a lot of other astrology stuff, and you probably will be aware of it. But on the 28th is the Leo new moon. So remember that in terms of just at that time, at that new moon, you're really thinking in terms of planting a seed of bringing that generosity into play. Mm-hmm. So there, you think that's enough for Aries rising? You want to move on to the next one, to Taurus?
Yeah, let's move to Taurus rising.
Okay, let's make all of this stuff go away. And
just like that.
Just like that. Okay, now for those of you with Taurus rising, we are going to see that the sun, when it moves into Leo, it's coming into your second house. It's bringing that warmth and generosity to your home and family. Mm-hmm. Before we dig deeper into, you know, what the challenges and gifts of this period of time are, let's just kind of lay out this little wave of how the month progresses. We're looking at the first few days from the 22nd, when the sun moves into Leo, through the 26th, we're sort of in a high spot. Is that right, Jenny? Things look pretty good there.
Yeah, it's just sort of there's a couple trines. We're kind of easing into the month.
Kind of easing into Leo season. The sun moves into Leo. It feels good. On the 26th, between the 26th and the 21st, what's going on there?
Things get a little more hectic, I would think. Well, first of all, we have that new moon on the 28th.
Yeah.
And we have Mercury squaring Uranus. So there's just a little more anxiety and tension in the air, and maybe some challenges to how you want to think about things. And I think that's kind of the main highlight, and just really just challenge and kind of butting up against some blocks to how you want to do things, and just kind of having to deal with that.
Yep. So work with that week. It's not going to be as easy as the first few days there. And then from the 7th, from the 2nd to the 7th is a really sweet point as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice little breather, you know.
A nice little breather.
Moving into Virgo. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked how when you and I first got on, you were talking about it like a wave. There's a little bit of a challenge, and then a little bit of a good point, and you know, it just kind of goes up and down. So the 2nd to the 7th is a really sweet spot. The 7th to the 14th, that's when we want to kind of, that's when the real challenge of the month.
Yeah, that's when the sun in Leo really encounters some obstacles. It comes up against Saturn and Aquarius as a sort of blockade, and then it's squared by Uranus. So that's kind of the tricky week that's when you might really be feeling, wait, I'm supposed to be having fun. Like, why do things just get all tense all of a sudden?
And that's really, you know, that brings us into the crux of the issue of the month. But as we're talking about the wave, we want to also say that from the 14th through till Virgo season starts, we've got another high point on that wave.
Yeah, things kind of settle down and ease off, and this, you know, might be a little bit of kind of dreaminess and confusion towards the end, but it's a little softer than what you're dealing with the week before. So a lot softer.
A lot softer. During the challenging parts of this season, where's the challenge? The challenge is, for those of you with Taurus rising, the challenge is between that area of home and family and the outer world, your career, your reputation, how you show up in the world. I mean, this could be as simple as, damn it, the sun is out, it's Leo season, I want to go to the beach, but I got to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the stress between the seriousness of your profession and blah, 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 sort of interfering with your ability to have fun with your family, right?
Right.
I mean, it's kind of that simple.
Yeah.
And then that the T-square part of it, when you think about Uranus in Taurus there in the first house, well, there's just some kind of upset in how you view yourself. And that's playing into this stressful situation. Like maybe you thought of yourself one way and you're coming to find out there's this whole nother dimension that you're dealing with. And it might be coming as an awakening, but it also might be feeling pretty darn disruptive and aggravating with Mars there as well. So that's kind of the challenge of the month.
Yeah, it's something you're discovering about yourself that is creating more attention between those two areas of the home and family and the career. It's really creating some stress there. So, those are the areas of your life to really pay attention to, think about how you want to work with them. And then we also want to just point out that there is a gift that really helps support and make all of this workable. You can kind of rest in this expansion of your kind of this fiery inner understanding that you have of yourself. How would you think about that, Jenny?
Well, gosh, the 12th house is always a little tricky, right? So it's something that's like, I think of this as being a gift that's hidden away that you didn't even know you had at all. And it's kind of being brought up to your attention just by benefit of this transit. So something about your viewpoint, about how you deal with suffering, your viewpoint of the collective of humanity. I mean, these big picture things, and just suddenly maybe coming into contact with a contribution you can make through the selfhood of Aries, that fierce, autonomous piece coming in. So it's kind of like a little discovery, because that 12th house is about hidden things that aren't readily obvious. So maybe it's time for that to come to light.
And it's interesting that trine, the exact time of that trine, is during one of the harder pieces of this month, actually. But this really, really gives us the ability to work with it and make sense of it.
Yeah, you're right, Laurie. It comes a little bit earlier during that first difficult period. It's kind of like this little, like, hold on, don't, it's okay. Don't get stressed. Remember this piece that you have, this nice trine coming in from there. So
remember that gift. Yeah. When Jupiter trines the sun, it's generally one of the nicest. It just feels good. And with these both being in fire signs, it's a fire. Yeah. Go to the beach. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I think it's considered one of the most beneficial aspects in the ancient astrology. I mean, it's just, you can't beat it. So take advantage of that. Really let that bring that playfulness.
And Jupiter, just to say it, Jupiter is going retrograde right in that period of time as well. This is, so Jupiter's kind of standing still and really giving this gift. It's not just giving it as it's running away. It's like giving it. It's holding that line. I feel like that's really a nice place for it to be going retrograde, just as it's in that aspect with the sun.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
I think those of you with Taurus rising, like, this is a great opportunity this month to really come to a deeper understanding about something about yourself that you haven't had the opportunity in your lifetime to date to really work with these two things coming in there. So
and whatever it is, whatever that thing is that you're opening the door to this understanding, is a real gift in how you relate with your family, how you feel about being home, whatever home means to you. So that's really lovely.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Let's go on to those of you with Gemini rising. This is bringing the sun, the warmth of the sun, Leo season. It is bringing that into the third house of your day-to-day environment and your communications. I think that's how we want to think about that third house. Now, before we dig deeply into what's going on here, let's just lay out that wave of the month.
Mm-hmm.
We
Okay.
start the month. How do we start the month?
No, the beginning of the month is pretty
Or
chill.
not
It
the
kind of starts out.
We're saying the beginning of the month, but what we're
Yeah.
talking about is the beginning of the Leo season. I apologize.
That's right. Yeah, good correction.
Yes, yes.
I know. Yeah, so the beginning of that Leo season, it starts out quite nicely. You have a nice trine kind of coming into it, and things are feeling pretty good. And then on the 26th, you hit the beginning of some challenges. And those challenges last from the 26th until about the 1st. And they just kind of bring up maybe some uncomfortable things, maybe some challenges to your mindset, especially with Leo being in the 3rd house of communication and learning. Something might come up that kind of blocks the track that you're on. But then it kind of settles back down. So like August 2nd through the 7th, we're looking at a nice calming down period, just a little more settling, maybe feeling a little more grounded during that period. Yeah.
Mercury moves into Virgo during that period of time, so your mind kind of settles down and really can work. You can work with your mind better at that time. And then we go into the 7th to the 14th, which is probably the most challenging point.
Yeah, for sure. That's when the sun meets its major challenges of the month. The sun itself opposes Saturn and it scares Uranus in that period. So you really kind of meet that. Things start getting maybe feeling like a bit more of a struggle. And again, these are with Gemini rising, your sun being in the 3rd house. This could be challenges around how you work with siblings. This could be a challenge around your mind state, how you learn, or it could be a challenge with something like neighbors, or not feeling so good about acquaintanceships in your local area. So it really brings in those local issues.
It brings in how your mindset relates to your neighbors, your siblings, the mindset of your immediate environment, your worldview. I mean, in today's political, cultural thing, this could bring in, real struggles with how you think and how your siblings think, or how those in your immediate environment think. And it really, that could get pretty tense.
Yeah, I mean, with Saturn in the 9th house, it could be a religious conflict, like having 2 different religions with somebody that's close to you. I mean, it could be about, you're right, politics, your philosophies of life could be very different. And you may feel kind of blockaded by that person because Saturn kind of blocks you. So it might feel like your light's being clamped down on a little bit and shadowed a little bit.
Right. And then how would you think about the square to Uranus here?
Well, 12th house.
12th house.
Yeah, that's I mean, that could be something blindsiding you. That's something coming out of thin air and kind of because the 12th house is things that are hidden that you don't see coming. It's a house of hidden enemies, house of suffering. So this is something kind of that you weren't aware of coming out and suddenly making itself aware with Mars and Uranus there and creating a challenge to that conflict, between what you're feeling.
It's like, the way I think about that is this conflict that you're having, religious, political, educational, whatever it ends up being for you, is waking up some unconscious responses. So be aware of your responses to those in your environment. I would say that's a really important thing. That's interesting to think about that. But then we want to mention here that we've got a gift that's really helping us out this period of time. And I think if you think about this as, you've discovered some unconscious patterns of thinking that could really trigger you. Yeah. But then you've got a connection with community that soothes you.
Yeah, so it's like you're kind of having the struggle, but maybe you just need to go out with that group of friends that's, not as closely connected to your community and do something together that's useful, or have fun together.
Right. Or go join go join a gathering of people that think like you do, that's going to soothe you in the midst of all this struggle.
Yeah, go play a game of pickleball. That's kind of the latest craze I heard about.
Right. Or
So,
go, you know,
yeah.
join a book club at your library, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, because it's in Aries, I think your idea of pickleball is more appropriate, because doing something physical with a community is really going to soothe that struggle.
Yeah. Or, I mean, other things you can use for fire are activism, a cause, like something that you can passionately believe in. That is another way to kind of put this energy to use in a good way.
Yeah.
And also I just want to add, like, you know, with those of you Gemini rising, it's not to be sort of afraid of what the thing is that's hidden. This is actually an opportunity to wake up to something that maybe has kind of been controlling you that you haven't even been aware of. It's an opportunity to wake up to that and to release it. And that's really what we're looking at here. So
awesome. That's great. Okay.
Right.
Anything else last minute?
No, I think we're good. We've laid it out.
All right. We've laid out what we're going to lay out for now. So now let's go on to those of you with Cancer rising. All right. If you've got Cancer rising, the sun is moving into your second house, bringing warmth and generosity into that second house, which is really the area of your life that we can think of it as our self-worth. We can also think of it as money and resources. You know, being generous with your money and resources is a way to really build your self-esteem when you have Cancer rising. It's really a big piece of it.
It's what you value. Sometimes it's what you own. It's all of those kind of tangible things that all feed into that, as well as your self-esteem.
Right. So one thing we want to lay out for you is the kind of the wave of the month. Not the month, excuse me, the Leo season. When the sun moves into Leo on the 22nd, we've got that first little piece of the season. The 22nd through the 26th is a pretty positive time. There's some nice trines. There's some kind of good stuff going on there. And then the 26th to the 1st, it gets a little dicier. There's some aggravation to how we think. That's really where the aggravation is. Our minds get kind of worked up in that period of time. And then what happens after the 2nd, Jenny?
Well, then you kind of get a little opportunity for a little nourishing, little, you know, after that hard part, you've got an opportunity for things to calm down, to feel nourished, and then also a bit more grounded, because Mercury is going to move into Virgo where it likes to be, happy being there. So that upset mindset is going to be able to get to kind of calm down. Yeah. And get you ready for the next the next phase,
the next wave.
Which exactly, the next kind of peak of a challenging week, which is August 7th through the 14th. That's when the sun then has to kind of tangle with that Saturn and Uranus that are in this picture, and more questions about your fundamental identity and how you value yourself, because we're in the second house here. So it becomes those things kind of become.
I gotta stop.
Okay. Oh boy.
Well, now I'm going to have to fuck with this video. I don't know what happened, and I just let him out. I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to work with this kitten. I think I'm going to have to give him away. I won't give him away. But we're going to stop.
To say like, oh, this is when the sun does it.
Yeah. So let me get back to that. And I'll figure it out when I go back. Okay. So let's start again. Let's start again now. All right. So what we're talking about now is that challenging week of August 7th to 14th. That's really the crux of the Leo season. Hold on. Okay. So we're talking about the week of August 7th to 14th. That's the challenging week, correct?
Yeah, that's when we're really the sun is really getting into the thick of it with its difficult opposition and square for that month. So that's really the tricky, more questions to your fundamental identity, maybe questions about your value and values. I mean, just a few different things there, but that's the difficult month. Week. And then after that, for the rest of Leo season, from the really the 14th through the 22nd, it's pretty it's easier, it's more mellow. There might be some fogginess. Yeah, I mean, there might be a little bit of fogginess towards the end of the month, but basically that's what it looks like. Two difficult weeks, two easier time periods.
Yeah. And yeah, the most stressful one is the 7th through the 14th. So just, know that when that's over, things will get easier. And where the stress of the month really falls for you is in that area between your values and other people's values. So, that can bring up a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're so generous with your own values, ideally, with Leo in that area. And then there's some stress from other people's values that's kind of putting a damper on how you want to express your own values. There's something that's putting a damper on that.
Yeah. Right? I mean, the fundamental question is, how do you value yourself? I mean, with that Leo sun going through your second house, because if you're struggling with that, then other people's stuff is going to kind of crush you, because this question here about how you value yourself and how you draw boundaries with other people and their baggage and their stuff they're projecting onto you. So it's really just this, the more that you can give yourself the love that you need, the more you can more easily stabilize yourself and draw those boundaries with people coming at you with all kinds of different things. And then you actually can be helpful, and help and keep yourself intact.
Okay. So then with the T-square bringing us here to the 11th house of the community and how we receive love, how is that community or your interactions with folks who support your way of thinking, how is that contributing to the stress? That's something for you, I think, to really think about.
Yeah. So this brings in, I agree with you, Laurie. Yep.
Yeah. So
sorry about that.
No, I just wonder how that works. I mean, all of you are going to have to think about that. If you've got Cancer rising, what is the contribution from community to your understanding of your own values and how you interact with other people's different values? And how, how those work together.
It kind of, in a way, it breaks up the stalemate, but in between, in that opposition, but it might not be the easiest. It means having to contend with something that you don't find very easy about being in community, and having to kind of tangle with that and find a new way to interact with your community. But we have that gift, right, Laurie? We have that gift of the Jupiter trine.
The wonderful thing this month is, or this Leo season, is that, there are some serious challenges here during this time, but Jupiter is like, okay, in your case, those of you with Cancer rising, the gift comes from your career, your job out in the world, how the world sees you in a really public manner. That's where you get some real soothing gifts from that will really help you navigate this difficult challenge.
Yeah, that's a really great summary. And so it's a little bit like that. Jupiter just provides you some refuge. Like when you're struggling, take a break, go to work, be at work, enjoy being at work and what that provides you. And then that'll help you with this other thing that feels a bit more stressful, or a lot more stressful.
Yeah, you're working with your community. You're working with figuring out how to navigate other people's boundaries. With any time that the 8th house is part of it, use ritual to support what you're doing. And go to work. That's where you're going to be appreciated, and it's going to give you what you need to work through this. Okay.
Great.
So now we're going to move on to those of you with Leo rising. Now, if you've got Leo rising, then this sun is just moving into your first house, and it's really shining a light and bringing warmth to how you show up as far as your personality goes. You're really giving of yourself. That's the idea with the sun moving in here. Now, before we dig too deeply into the challenges of the month, which clearly there are some, or the season, not the month, I keep saying that, just kind of the wave of this season. We start out the first part from July 22nd to the 26th. There's some really nice aspects there. The mind is open and functioning well. That's a good period of time. Once we get past that, the 26th to the 1st, to August 1st, there's some challenges in that period of time, right? There's some difficulty. The mind starts getting a little more complex.
Yeah, there's some challenges to your mindset, like how it is you're thinking about things. And that might be a little bit like, oh, okay. But once you clear out of, and of course, on August 1st, you have the actual conjunction of Mars to Uranus. So that could be a pretty intense day. That might be one of the most intense days of the month, perhaps. But then right after that, there's a break. There's like a time with Venus and Cancer, it's sort of nourishing you and calming you down, and Mercury moves into Virgo. So after all those challenges to it, now it has a chance to really ground down in Virgo sign. It's very happy and it's an earth sign. So it's a chance to just bring your mind back down to earth, literally. And so that's really nice before we move into the next week,
which is really the
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 14th to the 21st is really, or no, I'm sorry, the 7th to the 14th is where things really get complicated and where we really need to think about what's going on. August 1st with that conjunction of Mars and Uranus, and then August 7th through 14th. Those are the most stressful periods of time. Then after the 14th, things really ease up a lot.
Yeah, that's right. So,
okay. So let's take a look at where the challenge is for you. You know, you're busy here. The sun moves into your first house. You want to shine your personality, but there is some stress from another, from a partner or someone, some personal relationship is putting some stress on how you express yourself.
Yeah, so that primary opposition is going to be it could be your partner, like your daily partner, but it could be any one-on-one interaction, really, where you feel that just kind of blockaded by Saturn. Really can kind of block the sun, and it can feel pretty intense, like your energy is being suppressed.
And I think because this creates a T-square to the 10th house, this might not be from an intimate partner or a spouse kind of relationship. It might be a business partnership that is bringing in the issue, or something from the outer world there's some connection there between those three areas. That's where the stress really is.
Something you're being asked to wake up to. I mean, there's something that you admit perhaps it's time to awaken, and it may feel very disruptive, and it may feel angsty and frustrating because Mars is there too. But be assured, it is for your growth and your awakening and what your work is here at this time. I mean, that's really what's showing up. So, but fortunately,
we have a real gift this month, and I really want to focus on thinking about that. Okay, so here's the struggle. You've got some challenge between you out in the world, your work, how you show up with your personality, and partners or friends, somebody there that's blocking you. But you've got this lovely trine, which is really a gift of expansion. You know, it's like your worldview is expanding your ability to show your personality in a really warm, delightful, generous way. And I think that's really important with that Leo rising, to find a way to really express yourself and express your worldview in a fiery, direct, warm way.
Yeah. This is something about your expansion of wisdom. That's what I think about that ninth house, like really is expanding your higher knowledge. So part of this could be, you know, while this difficult thing's going on, like keep up with your studies, like those, you know, studies that are behind the scenes that are really keeping you excited and expanding. And I mean, it could be contact, it could be travel, it could be contact with anything that you learn from. So it is like a teacher in a way. So it could be a foreigner or somebody from a totally different place who's you're excited about. So that kind of helps keep this whole thing moving and you in a more positive place.
Yeah. And I think it reminds me of a client that I was just working with this last week who has Leo rising, and she's traveling right now. And the travel, she's also traveling with a partner, and there's stress. But here, the Jupiter, the travel itself, what they're seeing and what they're experiencing as they're opening their understanding of the bigger world can really soothe that stressful part. So
that's perfect. Cool.
Yeah, that's really lovely to think about that. Okay. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think we've covered the quick highlights here.
Okay, the quick highlights. Now we're going to move on to those of you with Virgo rising. This sun going into Leo is bringing it right into the 12th house. So that's a little bit like, how do we understand that? How do we understand Leo in the 12th house? Well, that's a little tricky, isn't it? First of all, we're bringing the light and the warmth into the area of the unconscious thinking. So what is it? You know, it's like shining the light there. You really got to look under the surface. If you've got Virgo rising, this is a time to look at your, what you don't necessarily generally look at. Open that door to your inner thought processes.
Yeah. Presents somewhat of a paradox here having Leo in the 12th house, because it's such an outward thing, and this 12th house is so the opposite of outward. It's such an inward facing, the inner universe, essentially your way through your own self-knowledge into the greater understanding of all the things around you. I mean, it's quite a it really is a paradox to have that in that place. But what I think it does with anyone with Virgo rising is really using their mind to make an impact on the world, and it's being fueled by this really brightly shining energy behind the scenes. So it really is bringing in universal knowledge through the portal of the mind. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really like thinking about that 12th house as, it's a portal into the unconscious mind. And the old time astrologers, you'd read old texts and you'd hear so many horrible things about the 12th house. But the 12th house is really, it provides a way into understanding universal mind. That's what I think it does. Now, before we go into the stress of this Leo season, for those of you with Virgo rising, let's just talk real quickly about kind of the wave of the season, because we've got some real good highlighted periods of this time, and some that are more challenging.
That's right.
So we start the period from the 22nd, when the sun goes into Leo, through the 26th is a really good time. There's a lot of good energy there. We don't have much to worry about. Then we go from the 26th to the 1st of August, and we have some challenges kick in there.
For sure.
Yeah. Our mind kind of gets hit with some difficulties. We see things we don't necessarily want to see. We have to manage things we don't necessarily want to manage. And then on the 2nd to the 7th, we kind of get a breather, things feel better. And then what happens from the 7th to the 14th, Jenny?
Then we have another tricky month. That's where we, gosh, not month, week. Thank God it's not a month. We have another tricky week where that's where the sun really starts contending with these more challenging energies. That is the week of the sun actually opposing Saturn that you see in this picture here. And then there's a square to Uranus. So that's where your almost most fundamental identity is maybe feeling challenged, that things will come up that you perhaps don't really want to deal with, but you will have to deal with them. And that's kind of when that's going to show up. So yeah, so that's probably, as we've been saying, sort of the trickiest time. There's quite a bit of energy to that whole section of the month. And then you get kind of a nice wind down. Then we just have more of a trine energy, like more just a softer energy coming in towards the end of the month. And maybe a bit of fogginess towards the end there, but
it's softer, it's easier. The 14th through the 21st, and then on the 22nd the sun will go into Virgo, but the 14th through the 21st feels pretty good. There might be some confusion, some challenges in that way, but it's nothing like this earlier part of the month. The 7th to the 14th is the trickiest part. And for those of you with Virgo rising, where that difficulty is going to be is in, kind of opening that portal, but how your day-to-day routines are supporting that. There's going to be a challenge there. Maybe you're trying to do something and the kitten is driving you crazy. There's something, it's funny because the 6th house is about pets, among other things. It's the day-to-day routines of our lives. And that's where the challenge is coming from. There's a stress there. You're trying to do this inner work, but these day-to-day routines, unpacking boxes and feeding the kitten, are bringing in some stress. And then how does the 9th house play in, since this is a T-square?
Yeah, so I mean, then Uranus there brings in some really intense energy, and Mars being there too, it really kind of, brings in some crackling, like, I don't know, shake up type of energy, which can either be an awakening to a new type of wisdom, or it could be just a major disruption, like feeling like disrupted and that you're not able to go and do the things that you want to do. And I think, with Saturn in the 6th house, like, you've got to really pay attention to health issues. I mean, this might be a time when you don't want to pay attention to them. You don't feel like it. You're shining a light over there, and in the 12th activity is gone. You've gone deep, but you've maybe forgotten about your body a little bit in that 6th house. So that's something to bring into mind. And I think that the 9th house, the challenge there just becomes, how do you let your mind continue to open? Because the temptation here is to kind of contract and to kind of go into fight or flight. Whereas what you want to be able to do is to sort of see what the lessons are, to open up to it, to open up to the growth of what you need to learn about.
That's interesting. I like how you talk about that. I think that's, there's something in that 9th house, some awakening, some waking up, like anxiety waking up in your wisdom, or what you're learning, that is putting more pressure on that struggle. But then there is a gift. So you're working with that. You're trying to figure out how to work with that. And you've got a real gift during this period of time that I think is just priceless. I just am so happy to see that piece during this period of time. Jupiter in a trine aspect to the sun. That's just a beautiful opening, a free flow of energy to allow yourself to really shine this light. And the gift is coming, in your case with Virgo rising, that gift is coming from other people, from other people's offerings to you, is sort of how I think about that. It's like there's a deep acceptance of you, or a deep opening to your understanding of someone else's values that allow yours to go deeper. This is an interesting 8th to 12th house combination.
This is like resources that come your way. I think in some traditional astrology, like the 8th house is the house of inheritance, and having Jupiter in there is bringing in this unexpected resource from somewhere else. and it's just kind of dropping into your lap here. That's what the suggestion is, that it's just somehow popping up. So some way that I think you did use the word welcoming. I mean, you're being welcomed in somehow, in a place on a deep level that maybe you weren't expecting while you're dealing with this other kind of challenge. And fortunately, that is going to come early in the month, like that Jupiter to the sun. It's pretty early in the month. So it's sort of setting you up to be in contact with that energy throughout the month as a great resource.
And again, we're saying month when we mean season, but that, the trine between the sun and Jupiter is on July 31st. So that's where it really flows from, but it's in aspect for most of the period of time. So that's the gift. That's the gift. Enjoy that and go with that. Because it will really help, having that opening will really help support your necessary work on that T-square. That's nice. Lovely. I'm glad for that, I have to say. Okay. Let's make that all go away. And let's move on to those of you with Libra rising. So, okay, if you've got Libra rising, the Leo sun brings that energy, that warmth and light of the sun into your 11th house, which is the area where you receive love from others. Not from your best friends necessarily, but from the larger community.
Yes. That might be a group of friends that aren't as close per se, but that's where it's kind of like just go party with some people a little bit. It's like, go have a good time. That really is what's being said. Like really enjoy those group connections. I mean, anybody with Libra rising, this is your time of year to really enjoy that. And you may have noticed that year after year. Wherever, and it's one of the things that we really haven't talked about in any of these rising signs is wherever Leo is in your chart is where you can shine the brightest, regardless of where your sun is. Your sun rules this house. So this is where you can feel most yourself. So with Libra rising, that is within the context of whatever you call your community, the community that supports you, to your goals and wishes and desires. Because it can be people at work too. It's not just exclusively outside of that. So just to bear that in mind. But that's a great point. The rulership really important there. And community means so many different things to different people. I remember early on in my studies of astrology, that 11th house being talked about as your hopes and wishes. It took me so long to understand the 11th house. And it's not about your hopes and wishes. It's about the community of people who support you to what you desire. That's what it really is. And the question there for you is, how do you allow your community to support you? And I mean, that's the piece I know you always bring up, which is great, which is that receiving, that ability to receive love from your community. And it's just, so it's a really nice place to have Leo, quite frankly. It really is. Okay, so did we talk? I don't think we did here. For those of you with Libra rising, what about the kind of the wave of the Leo season? We start out on the 22nd when the sun goes into Leo. We're on a kind of a high point at that time. Between the 22nd and the 26th, things are pretty smooth and easy. It's kind of a good time. And then we hit the 26th and we kind of hit a little bit of a wall. And we kind of have a little struggle through until about the 1st of August, through the 1st of August. And then, oh, wait. Did I get that confused? No, that's right. That's absolutely right. 26th through the 1st is the kind of the first little bit of a challenge. And then the 2nd to the 7th, we kind of get a reprieve. Then the 7th to the 14th is the really trickiest part. It does not make me happy because that's my birthday week. I'm not thrilled about that. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. A challenging week there. But the 7th to the 14th is really when
the kind of the rubber hits the road here, and we really see where the challenge is, where the difficulty is.
Yeah, that's where the sun really encounters those roadblocks. In its desire to shine so brightly, it's kind of hitting some walls at that point.
It's going to hit some walls. And we're going to talk about those walls in a minute, but before we do, just to say on the 14th through the 21st, we kind of go into a much better space again. And there might be a little confusion there at the end of this Leo season, a little bit of, lack of clarity, but it's going to be a lot softer, and it's going to just feel better. And now let's go back to the difficulties and the challenges.
We don't want to forget about those.
We've got to talk about.
Yeah.
For those of you with Libra rising, that challenge is going to be coming from the area of how you give love. I mean, we talked about the warmth is in the area of where you receive it. So what is the struggle here between how you receive, or how you give, and how you receive?
Yeah, the Saturn in the 5th house, I mean, that really is a block to your ability to give love, depending how you're dealing with it, depending how you're functioning. And everybody's got a different story about how they're coping with this. But that Saturn in the 5th house is difficult because it's really sort of, I don't know, stymieing you, like halting you from just being able to freely give of love. It's bringing some question in, or some doubt, or some instability, or something like that you're not, or something where you're stuck. That's kind of what it's bringing about. And there really is a close relationship between how you give and how you receive love. And everybody's wired differently and have different things that they are comfortable with. But essentially, there's a challenge here around, if you're not feeling loved and supported by your community, it blocks you from being able to freely give love. You kind of want to withhold it.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. Totally.
Right. As soon as you stop freely giving, then you stop yourself from receiving. You can't, the polarities are so important to understand. In all of the polarities in astrology, it's so important to understand that they're kind of two sides of the same coin. And, we're talking about giving love here with the 5th house, but it's also, you can think of it as creativity. There's some way that you're, possibly your creativity is getting stuck, and it's just bringing in that difficulty.
It's just making me think of that you're trying to work on this pretty challenging creative project, because they're not necessarily easy. They bring things up, but really what you want to do is just go out and have fun with your friends and go party with your friends. But you need to stay and finish this project. Could be something around those lines, or you want to go out and have fun, but you have kids at home and you just can't, and you're a single parent, and that's just not available to you. And so you're feeling this frustration and push and pull between those two parts of your life.
It's good. It's good to remember that 5th house, the old time astrologers called it the house of children, love affairs, and creativity. It's where we give of ourselves kind of unconditionally. With Saturn going through there, those areas, it's hard to give when Saturn is teaching us hard lessons in that area. It's a tricky business there. Okay.
And then you bring in the rest of the configuration, which thank you for
the T-square there.
So that brings in it adds more tension to this whole structure, and adds more, and it makes it more dynamic. There's a lot of growth available to you here. And here what you're seeing is this question around the 8th house, which is this area where other people's stuff is something you have to deal with. I'm talking about baggage, intense emotions, the things people want to kind of throw at you. And there's some kind of awakening here about how you manage that, how you manage shared resources. It could be shared resources with a partner. I mean, there's a number of ways this can come about.
Yeah, that 8th house, the 8th house is a fascinating one. And you can think of it as shared resources, other people's resources, other people's money. You can also think of it as it's really where you have to learn how to navigate other people's stuff. And I like how you were talking about with that opposition. You might want to just go out and play with your friends, but you've got kids at home and you can't do that. And then you've got this issue of other people's beliefs about how you should do that.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, you should just leave the kids at home, or no, you should, you know, everybody's got their opinion about how you should navigate this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is really the main area of awakening for you with Libra rising. Like this is the main, like this kind of puts it kind of puts the focus on that, because that's where the action can take place. So really the question for you is, how are you drawing those boundaries? What kind of rituals do you need to allow you to balance these really difficult things in your life to make this all happen?
So much with this configuration with Libra rising is that issue of boundaries. And I love how you always bring ritual into that area of the chart, because using ritual to kind of steady yourself in the face of this, there's some aggravation going on there. You are aggravated. And what's the date? It's on August 1st that Mars conjuncts Uranus in that area. So there's like somebody's opinions of how you are navigating this 5th to 11th house. Somebody's beliefs are really, you know, you're waking up to an understanding of a deeper level that you have to go in navigating that. So it's like keep your boundaries.
A rock in your shoe.
Right. There's a rock under your foot in your shoe, and you can't stop and get it out yet. But yeah, really paying attention to your boundaries and rituals that can help you set and stabilize those boundaries. All right. So now what's the gift? Here's the wonderful part of this Leo season. This is a lot of real tension and struggle going on, but there's a gift, and we can really tap into that gift. And for you with Libra rising, that gift comes directly from someone in your life, whether that's your spouse or your best friend or your business partner. It's some one-on-one, intimate partner relationship that is opening up a door that helps you really shine that light where it needs to shine.
Yeah, I mean, this is that partner who wants to go with you to all that fun stuff. You know, I mean, this is that close person who's like, yeah, let's, you know what, we got a babysitter. Or, you know, your creative project is going to be waiting for you tomorrow. It doesn't matter. We can go out and have a good time, and I'm here to support you and help you with that.
I love that, Jenny. That's perfect to think about it exactly that way. Yeah. That person is going to hold your hand and say, come on, we can go out and just play with the community, have a good time. And the work and the effort involved in giving of yourself will still be there tomorrow or next week or in Virgo season, whatever it is. All right. I think that wraps us up for Libra rising. Let's go on and see what's going on for Scorpio rising. If you've got Scorpio rising, the Leo sun is going to move right in here into your 10th house. This is going to bring the light and the warmth into your career, how you show up in the outer world. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the month.
It's not
the month. It's Leo season.
Right. We keep saying the month.
I know. The beginning of Leo season is pretty chill. It kind of comes in with a nice trine in the beginning there. And then once you hit the 26th, you start feeling some challenges come in. So there's this kind of week of challenge.
That's from the 26th to the 1st, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of, and there's going to be some intensity in that. There's some intense aspects, and there's also some real challenges to your mindset. So that might be how it comes about. After that, you get a reprieve for another few days from August 2nd until the 7th. Things get a little softer. Mercury grounds itself in Virgo. So now you can settle that all down to get you ready for the next intense week, which is the 7th through the 14th. Yeah.
And that's really the crux of it.
Yeah. And that's when the sun really faces the main challenges of the whole month. It's going to be in that week. And then fortunately after that, things settle down a bit, and we finish out Leo season with a really nice kind of think of it as like a leaf, like drifting back all the way down to the ground. And it's, you know, just a soft kind of landing.
I like
so
that.
that's how we're looking at it. I kind of keep thinking of this image of like the wave comes in and then it like retracts and you get a break, and then there's another wave and then retracts and then the season's over. So it's a pretty simple way to think about it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so here we are. Let's think about the stress, because that's what we've got to work with. You know, this is really the piece that we have to work with. And that is that during Leo season, the Sun and Saturn are going to oppose each other. And so that's where the stress is. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's a great deal of stress for those of you with Scorpio rising. That stress is between your career and your home and family, or your reputation and your home and family, whatever it is. It's the outer world, your most outward part of your life and your most inward part of your life. That's where there's some stress. So there's something, it's like you want to shine at work. You want to bring that warmth and generosity into your career with the Sun moving in there. And yet there's something from the home and family that's stopping you. That's kind of like, no, you got to come home and take care of the kids. You can't just play at work all day. Those of you with Scorpio rising really do. There is a play at work kind of element to your life, because Leo is in that 10th house.
And also, I mean, your sun, wherever your sun is, the Scorpio rising rules your 10th house, is in charge of it. So it's very important to you. Like with Scorpio rising, your profession is extremely important to the manifestation of your overall core purpose in life. Should you believe in such things? But it really is there. I mean, the other thing I was thinking about, the 4th house can also, yes, it is family and home and those things, but it also refers to your inner home, the way you've been as an adult, being able to integrate your personality into this solid root system of your own life. And so this is maybe a time when that's being challenged. Like maybe you're not so sure about some of the things that you've done, and it's coming about in your career, and you're feeling like your base is not quite what you thought it was. Like there's something you need to learn here still. There's something you need to work with. And maybe it's depending on what phase of life you're in, it might not be very pleasant. It might be just kind of unsettling and like, what am I doing? So be assured, the astrology is supporting you in this process. This is where you're supposed to be.
Right. Okay. So with that stress between home, family, inner self, outer self, there is there's a T-square created here to the 7th house. So what's going on in your relationships? That's the question. How there's some anxiety, you know, these two, Mars and Uranus, are going to come together. They come together on August 1st. There's some sort of a explosive change occurring in either in a partner's life, in a partnership, or something in that realm that is really impacting this struggle between home and family, family and outer world.
Yeah. I mean, so this could be, I was thinking as you're talking, Laurie, just that this could be some way that your most primary relationship, if you have one, feels like an irritant, like it feels like something that you're frustrated with. And it's like, you know, kind of holding you back and making you feel stuck, because Mars sure doesn't like to be in Taurus. But what the question is here is, how can you turn that to recognize your partnership as a source of your awakening rather than something that's pissing you off?
That's that's really perfect the way you said that. I really like that. That partnership is an element of waking you up to how you're going to work with this stress as well.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah,
to think about that. You know, just on a practical level, I'm thinking the Sun in Leo, everybody wants to go to the beach, but the family is not cooperating and the partner is part of the problem. You know, this is really, you know, you can paint a picture here of a struggle, and what your individual struggle is may look similar to that or feel similar to that. But let's not forget that in the midst of this challenge, whatever it is, you've got a gift that really supports it. And this trine from Jupiter to the sun is such a wonderful thing to see in the midst of this. Don't you think?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is a support. This is an easy support.
Yeah.
You know, and in your case, this is with the Scorpio rising, this is the support of your routines, which can very much be like your fitness routines. It can be how you eat. It can be just your day-to-day work life, what that's bringing in. So this is a very nice supportive piece. I mean, I think about this might be a sport that you play that just helps you, or a pet that you have who's awesome and just helps you just kind of remember, you know, what you need to remember for the day, like keep you present and grounded. And,
and also it could be your coworkers.
That's true.
You know, because that's to the 10th house, this stress with your family and your partner. Well, there might be some coworkers that are really supporting you, and just, you know, this support, it doesn't take away the challenge, but it does enable you to see it from a different perspective, to understand it and realize it's something that is workable.
Yeah.
I think that trine from Jupiter is just brings in workability, and especially in that 6th house, it's like, day to day you can work with this issue, and it's okay. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we move on?
No, I think we're good to move on.
Now we're going to go to those of you with Sagittarius rising. If you have Sagittarius rising, Leo season is bringing the sun into the 9th house. And this is really bringing the warmth and generosity of the sun into the area of your life that's really about your worldview, how you expand your understanding of the world. That can show up in many ways. You know, it can be around travel or religion or politics or education, how you expand your understanding. That's where the warmth of the sun is entering here on the 22nd of July.
Yeah, and that's a high value being placed on individual critical thinking, like really having the ability to open your mind and to think for yourself. I mean, that's what, you know, to not get stuck in dogma, to not, at least that's the highest manifestation in the 9th house, is not to get caught up in, I don't know, just kind of rote things, but to be willing to have an open mind, you know, really.
Right. And the flip side of it is exactly the opposite. If you're not working with it well, right?
Then you're getting stuck in dogma. You're working with, you know, a belief system without grounding it in any sort of higher value or looking more at the facts, you know.
And that makes me want to jump right into the crux of things. But before we do that, let's just talk a little bit about the wave of the month, because we kind of, not the month, the season, I'm sorry, Leo season. So at the beginning, on the 22nd of July, we have kind of a sweet spot from the 22nd to the 26th. Things are kind of easy. Things are fine. The 26th to the 1st, we run into a few challenges. Correct, Jenny?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Challenges to your mindset.
Challenges to your mindset. Yeah. And then, and for you, because so much of this is about your mindset. Yeah. It's interesting. Pay attention to that period, the 26th to the 1st. So challenges to your mindset. And then from the 2nd to the 7th, we've got another kind of easier.
Like a grace period. You know?
That's a way. Yeah, and take advantage of that, because right after that, from the 7th to the 14th, is when we really kind of crash into the difficulty of this season. And there is a difficulty in this season when the sun tangles in with Saturn and Uranus here. So the 7th to the 14th is a challenge, and we'll go into that challenge. And then the 14th to the 21st, what happens there?
Things just kind of settle down. I think that the end of the season kind of brings us down kind of gently with some trines and, you know, nothing too, maybe a little bit of fogginess or confusion towards the end of the month there, but it's soft. It's sort of a softer aspect. So it kind of brings us down. in that way. So, which I think is helpful.
Okay. Yes, it is. Thank goodness. So just kind of watch the wave and how you move through it. And for those of you with Sagittarius rising, let's look at where the real challenge, particularly in that 7th to 14th of August, comes in for you. And that's going to be between your 9th house and your 3rd house. And with the opposition at that point between the Sun and Saturn. So Sun moves into your 9th house. You really are you want to bring this warmth and this expansion into wisdom, learning something new. And yet your day-to-day routine thinking is not really supporting that, is it?
No. Yeah, it's sort of like you are not getting the education you need, and that, I mean, the 3rd house is the house of learning, and so somehow that's blocked, or somehow the commonplace ways of learning is not accessible to you, and it's creating stress. It's you want to open your mind, but you can't do the kind of nuts and bolts of the learning you need to do. Maybe you can't complete the course you've signed up for, yet you really need it to kind of help you move further along in your career, because it's up there in the 9th house, which is pretty close to where you're heading for your career. Now, some kind of blockade, or
there's some block in your just the way your mind is working in regard to that desire to expand. There's a blockage there, and it could, with it being in the 3rd house, it could be coming directly from a sibling, a neighbor, that the connection of the 3rd house to siblings and neighbors, I think, is really important sometimes. You might have a neighbor that is challenging your desire to expand your thinking, or a sibling that is blocking you from taking a trip that's going to expand your mind, or something like that. You might be ready to go on a European tour, and all of a sudden a sibling gets sick and you have to stay home and take care of them. Those kind of things.
Or your neighbor's really giving you problems, and now you're like, wait, how can I go away? Right, this neighbor problem is happening. I mean, I don't feel
safe going on a trip because my neighbor is stalking me or something like that.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. So there is the stress, and to complicate that stress, we bring in the 6th house. Okay.
And in a way, I mean, what we're looking at is what's called T-square structure in astrology. And anytime with the T-square, you're going to look at the Uranus and Mars there, where that square is happening. That's where the challenge really lies. Like, that's where you really have to do something about it. You're being asked to take action on it. And so the action in your case is Sagittarius rising. It's going to be something about how do you adjust your routines? How do you adjust your daily and your weekly routines in order to take on board this other struggle that you're having, your desire to expand your mind, your struggle with being able to access somehow the things that you need for your learning. It's some way that you're going to adjust. Maybe it's that you need a break from work and you're taking a holiday. I mean, it's this something that you need to just kind of break that up.
Yeah, you need to break up some routine that is supporting this stress. So, on a really simple little silly story way that I think of is, as you were saying that, I was thinking of, okay, this neighbor that is blocking my ability to go on a trip or to do what I want. Well, maybe you simply need to start parking your car in a different place so the neighbor's not aggravated with you.
Right. It could be a simple adjustment.
It could be a very simple adjustment that can make a huge difference. A simple adjustment. Don't let your dog go poop in their flower garden. Whatever it is, there's something that you can do that can settle down that stress.
Yeah, and with Uranus there, this is something in your 6th house that may feel like an irritation or a disruption or something that feels annoying. But if you can tweak it a little bit and look at it as a way to wake up, it then becomes something you can work with instead of something you're just fighting with and fed up with. I mean, that's basically what it's all about, right?
Yeah. And, you know, you think about that, Mars and Uranus actually make an exact conjunction on August 1st. And that is the beginning of a 2-year cycle of waking up to how you use your physical energy.
Yeah.
So, you know, really think about that area of your life and how you're using it and how it is contributing to this current, just at this moment, stress.
Yeah.
During Leo season. Okay.
You know, unfortunately, you have an ally in all this.
We've got an ally. It's not all difficulty. We've got this friend that is supporting our desire to expand ourselves and our understanding and our wisdom. And that friend, that support, is coming from the 5th house. So what might that look like?
Well, I was thinking this might be the way that a child, because the 5th house is children, among other things, way a child kind of suddenly brings to your attention what's important, because that's what they do. They suddenly point out, you know, like, oh, like when you're all stuck in your adult world, they'll suddenly point out something, you know, maybe an animal or a beautiful flower or something that they can see through their child lens that you can't. And they just wake you up like that to, I don't need to be all stressed out and freaked out. I just need to pay attention to this right this moment.
It's simpler than you might think. I think that, you know, and the 5th house is really how we give of ourselves. You can think of the 5th house as the house of children, love affairs, creativity. This might be, you know, you have a new love interest that really supports this expansion of your understanding and soothes you even in the midst of this big problem you might have with your neighbor. But that new love affair or that new creative endeavor that you've just discovered might really be the place to allow yourself to, you know, you're not going to ignore this square. You got to keep working on it. But this gives you a pathway of relief and release in the midst of it.
And I was just thinking as you're talking, Laurie, like just the possibility of a flow state becoming available. So just dropping into the present moment of whatever creative thing you're working on.
Yeah. So those of you with Sagittarius rising, think about how and where and to whom or to what you give of yourself, because that's where you're going to be able to open that door to that flow state that's going to soothe and support and make this challenge of this period of time really workable for you. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're done with that. And let's move on to, whoops, I got to get rid of that. Okay, let's move on to those of you with Capricorn rising. The Leo sun has moved into your 8th house. So this is bringing light and warmth into the area where we learn about ourselves through understanding others' deep issues. You got a better way to say that?
That's a great way to say it. And I just, another thought is this is your shared resources with other people. So this is something about enjoying your shared resources with other people, whatever those might be.
Yeah. And wherever Leo is in your chart, it's such an area of your life where you really can be yourself. You know, so you really, it really takes your heart to grapple with other people's stuff, how you share resources, how you understand other people's deep values. So before we dig into the challenges and the gifts of this Leo season, let's think about the kind of the flow of the season. It really does have kind of an in and out flow, like a wave. We start when the sun moves into Leo on the 22nd. We're kind of on a high point. The 22nd to the 26th, we've got some nice energy going on. The 26th to the 1st, what happens in there?
Ooh, it gets a little more intense. You have some squares, which basically represent some stress and some growth. Actually, the new moon is in there too, but it's really a challenge to your mindset that may pop up at this time. And there might be some really intense feelings that happen in this time too. So that's kind of what you're looking at. But fortunately, then after that, you have a few days of respite. There's a kind of a time of more yin energies, more the nourishing energy that comes in, and also the possibility to get a little more grounded as Mercury moves into Virgo.
Yeah, that's going to be really helpful. So that period of time between August 2nd and August 7th, that's a good respite before we hit the really most difficult part of Leo season, is between August 7th and August 14th. I'm not happy about that. That's my birthday week. But that is the challenging part of this season. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, after that, from the 14th to the 21st, we go into a much more flowing state, a simpler state. It's a little bit of confusion maybe, or lack of clarity there at the end of the season, but it's a softer landing after that 7th to the 14th. Mm-hmm. So let's look at the challenge, and then we'll also look at the gift. So don't get too discouraged. The challenge for those of you with Capricorn rising, the challenge is between this 8th house and the 2nd house. Mm-hmm. So this is a stress between your values and the values of other people, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And there's really some question here being posed, right?
What's the question?
I was thinking the difficulty of have Saturn in your 2nd house. You know, you have struggles with self-love. If you have struggles with self-worth, that may manifest through your financial situation, this is what's going to show up. Yeah. And it probably feels pretty hard. I mean, Saturn's a difficult planet. It's here to teach us a lot of things, but it will challenge us along the way. So that's what we're really seeing. But I think, it may be popping up as financial stress, because both of these houses deal with finances as well. Your finances, other people's finances. Yeah. So that may be part of it.
Saturn's been moving through your 2nd house for quite a while here, those of you with Capricorn rising. So really learning to work with and understand how you use your resources, money and other resources, and how those resources really support your self-worth is a really important contemplation. So you're really looking at that during this period of time. And here what we have is a T-square formed from the 5th house. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the struggle really brings in how you are giving of yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I mean, you're looking at a place in your life that may feel difficult, may feel like a big disruption. Your ability to give love may feel disrupted or somehow, but really what's available to you is an awakening, is a way to wake up to new possibility for how you give love in the world. Yeah. And that's pretty cool, really. Yeah. It's hard.
And you can think about that 5th house, that giving of love as your creativity. It's not just how you give love to other people. It's, the old time astrologers would talk about it as the house of children, love affairs, and creativity. Those are, if you think about having children, having a new love interest, having a exciting creative project, those are the places where we really do give of ourselves. And that's an area for you to really be waking up to how you give love to those areas of your life. And that is tied in during this season with your values, other people's values, how you navigate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think in this case too, I was thinking about her 5th house can be lovers, and there's some challenge being brought in, like maybe you are at that stage in a relationship, an early stage in a relationship, and now there's some challenge being brought in about your value system with one another.
Oh, that
could be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That could, that's really good. I really like what you said there, because you could also think of that as not just like a new lover, but you could be having that same conflict with children.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You could be having that same conflict with a creative project that you've been involved with it with a long time, and all of a sudden it doesn't quite fit your values.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, there's like waking up to how what your expectations were may be very different than what you thought they were.
Yeah, and boy, aren't expectations a huge part of parenting if you're thinking about this from the parenting lens of dealing with children. I mean, gosh, but really anything in life, like expectations are really the key. Like if they're a high or if they're low, like what and how they match up with the outcome. And isn't that's where we
get ourselves in trouble. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So with all that difficulty and challenge, luckily and happily here during Leo season, we have a lovely gift with Jupiter and the sun in a trine aspect. A trine aspect is a free flow. It's a gift. You don't have to do anything for it. It's just right there. So there is some way that your ability to really open to an understanding, a warmth and generosity of understanding others or receiving that inheritance, whatever it is, that comes from your home and family.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this could be, I like this in terms of inheritance.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's true. Mm-hmm.
You can think of this, inheritance is a funny word. I mean, we think of it and we think, oh, you know, somebody died and left me a lot of money. But it could just be because this is in the home and family area. Some family member may be giving you a gift of allowing you to openly grapple with understanding them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. An inheritance doesn't have to be a whole lot of money. It might just be a conversation or an understanding that's open between that family member and your ability to grapple with deep issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, another thing I was thinking with Capricorn rising, maturing and having integrity are going to be big issues for you throughout your life, the direction of your life. And so if you've met those challenges well, and you've really grappled with the integration of your personality that the fourth house can represent, the root system that you've developed through your life, that can be super supportive of how you deal with other people's stuff as you get through this Leo season with this great challenge coming from how you value yourself. It could be a really nice support system, either from outside of you or from more of deeper, more introspective view is from that deeper level of maturing. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So there you have it. You know, when you're in the midst of the struggle here, just remember and take advantage of that Jupiter moving through your fourth house, really opening you and expanding your understanding of that deep inner level, your family, your home, your own internal depths. Okay. So we're going to go on now to those of you with Aquarius rising. And this, if you have Aquarius rising, the sun is moving right into your seventh house, the warmth and generosity that you want to bring to your partners, to your partnerships. That's where the warmth is. But before we go into the challenge of the season, let's talk a little bit about the wave and flow of this Leo season. What do we start with, Jenny?
Well, I kind of like to think there's almost like two waves coming in during the season. And first we start with some calm and, you know, nice, easy entry into the Leo season. Before on the 26th, July 26th, we have our first kind of snag where we start seeing some challenges, perhaps to the way that you're thinking about things. And there may be quite an intensive feeling of energy that's coming. There might be some intensity to this part. And so that's going to happen until August 1st. Yeah. So that's kind of the first big crashing wave, and then that's going to retreat. You've got a nice soft space there from August 2nd until August 7th. And then it starts to become tricky again. August 7th through the 14th, you have another kind of wave crashing of challenge and things that may feel pretty intense just towards your personal way of identifying. I mean, it really could be something that's showing up in a difficult way personally like that. So, and then you have the last week, which kind of flows back out and you have some more respite. So I really am thinking it like an ocean wave coming and crashing and retreating and crashing and retreating. And that kind of summarizes the energy of the month in a lot of ways. Yeah.
And the most difficult point in this is between the 7th and the 14th of August. That's really, I would think, the most challenging piece. So let's take a look at where that challenge falls for those of you with Aquarius rising. That challenge is going to be between the Sun in the 7th and Saturn in the 1st. So, you know, there's that desire to expand and bring warmth and generosity into your partnerships, but there's some part in you that feels restrictive of that. It's like, I want to be generous and loving and kind to my partner, but I'm not feeling, you know, centered enough or steady enough or respected enough to do that. You know, there's a real push-pull there.
It feels like with Saturn in the first house that anyone with this, you've been contending with some real challenges around your self-image, around your appearance, around your self-awareness and how you deal with yourself. You're being asked to really look at that and have been for a couple of years. So there's a challenge here, and it may feel like a lot of contraction, like a kind of contraction into yourself. And then meanwhile, you have Leo season that's saying, hey, let's expand and be sunny. And that's pretty hard when you're feeling the sort of oppression of Saturn on your first house and how you deal with yourself. Yeah.
Saturn moving through the first house is so much about learning who you are and being responsible for your personality and how you show up in the world. There's so much around this seriousness, facing the reality of who you are. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be all sunny in my relationship, but I don't feel all that steady here. And then there's the T-square that is created here that kind of brings like the challenge into the area of home and family. So this is going to be probably, I was going to say particularly potent for people who are in a partnership and live together, but not necessarily. You know, this is really the partnership, you in partnership with another, and how the home and family creates that stress or is currently supporting the stress, deepening the stress, you know, and that could be, if you live together, issues and problems within the home that you've created together. If you're, you know, it could also be if you're not, you know, if you were really young and this was a new partnership, your family might not like your part, you know, there could be those kind of issues. But there's something from the home and family that is impacting your ability to be in relationship with yourself and your partner.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, some kind of challenge. Or it could be if you're later on in life and you do have a partner, it could also be that you're needing to take care of elderly parents, and that's causing a lot of conflict and struggle. And that's a major issue for so many people, is how to balance all that and how to do all the things, like have a career and manage your own children or what have you, and manage having these elderly parents. But I was also, I mean, I think
or that if you, if you've got elderly parents at home, creating that stress between you and your partner. If you've got little kids at home, creating that stress. It's like something from the home. Maybe a tree fell on your house, and that's the stress at home. But there's something in that home area that's creating stress in the partnership.
And if this is your setup and you're not partnered, you don't have partners, it doesn't matter. This is how you interact in your one-on-one relationship. So it's some way that these other stresses are pulling you out of your ability to be in those one-on-one relationships, whether it's, you know, what you're doing at work, like if you're some sort of therapist and you're working with one-on-one people, it's a way in which it's going to impact any of those.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
to
It's
keep that
not
in mind.
yeah, it's not just a spousal partner kind of relationship. It would definitely cover any one-on-one
Yeah.
partnership type. So
Yeah.
with all that struggle and stress, you've got a gift here. And this is the piece to really keep in mind during this Leo season, is that there's a gift that really helps support the shining of the warmth and creativity and generosity in your relationship. And that is coming from the second house, your own third house. I apologize. So this is your ability to communicate, is really supporting that partnership and supporting your ability to work with that challenge in a way that will support the partnership.
Yeah, and I mean, the third house is also the house of siblings we've talked about many times. And that also brings in those close friends who are like siblings. So it might be a sibling or a close friend that is helping support you through these things. That is that listening ear, that person who is just standing by you and really cares about you, and there's no strings attached. There's just kind of this, I'm here to help you through this as your friend or your sibling.
Yeah, I like that. It's like it gives you I was just thinking about the struggle with the relationship, but the Jupiter trining, it's like, okay, that sibling or that neighbor or, that is a good listening ear kind of gives you an example of how to be in relationship in a more generous, open way. So you can kind of use that as practice almost.
Yeah, I mean, another way to think about this on a more inner light is just to think about this as your communication skills. You have prodigious communication skills with this, or you have the potential to. So employ that. Use that communication to speak about what's going on and what's keeping you from being able to be present.
Yeah, and while Jupiter is moving through that third house, your understanding it, your ability to communicate is expanding. That's a lot of, I love watching, Jupiter moving through people's charts and just seeing where it is in your life where there's a real expansion going on. And for you, it really is around the area of communication or expanding the understanding of those siblings or neighbor kind of relationships also. All right.
Nice. All right.
And enough. So those of you with Aquarius rising, there you go. We have it. And now we're going to move on to the final sign. And now those of you who have Pisces rising, where's the sun now, Jenny?
Pisces, you have the sun in the 6th house. So this is shining a light on your kind of your day-to-day routines, your work life, the things that you do each day to keep your health in a good place. So this is how you eat. This is how you exercise. This might be, I think you mentioned earlier, Laurie, like coworkers. So it's all of those places, and that's really what's being lit up during this Leo season. Pets. And animals, yay.
Yeah, pets are in there, because that 6th house is so much about day-to-day routines. And we all know if we've got a pet, they control our day-to-day routines. So sure that's where the sun is shining. But before we get into the challenges, the difficulties, and the lovely gift of this season, let's talk just a little bit about the flow of how this season goes. We start out when the sun moves into Leo on the 22nd. We're kind of in a high point. Things are moving smoothly. There's a lot of openness for that little period between the 22nd and the 26th. And then we hit a more difficult part of the season between the 26th and the 1st. And that really brings in some challenges to how we're thinking. That's what really is kind of on par, or that's what's on the table there, is challenges to our thinking and our communicating between the 26th and the 1st of August. Then between August 2nd and August 7th, we go into another kind of high point. Things are easier, things are smoother. Just, that kind of gives us some relief before we hit the most challenging part of the season, which is from August 7th through the 14th. And we're going to talk a lot about what the challenges are. After that, the really nice thing is that we kind of end the season on a more positive note between the 14th and the 21st. We've got more ease. We also have a little bit of lack of clarity. It's not like rah kind of relief, but it's softer. It's a lot softer of a period of time. Right?
Yeah, that's a good summary. So, yep.
Okay, so where's the difficulty? Where's the challenge? Let's look at this. For Pisces rising, this is between the 6th house and the 12th house. Mm-hmm. So you really want, you're kind of in this place. The sun moves into Leo, and you want to really open up these routines, bringing a lot of light and warmth into that area of your routines. And yet there's a challenge from way behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. What is this challenge? How would you look at that challenge between the 12th and the 6th?
Well, the 12th house is a pretty challenging house. And like you said, it's the things that are kind of hidden behind the scenes. So to have Saturn going through that 12th house suggests that there's something that you need to learn about your connection with the collective, or some way that you're dealing with suffering, but you're not quite sure where it comes from. You haven't really taken a look at it. And it's asking for some healing in that part of life. So it's kind of like there's this deep, mysterious force moving behind the scenes. And then the Leo sun is like, hey, but I just want to do this like daily, fun thing and keep it playful. But it's like this heaviness behind the scenes that you must deal with and you must embrace in order to learn what you need to learn, right?
Right. Yeah, I like that. Just thinking about the sun holding that space in the 6th house on your day-to-day routine level. You just want to shine brightly. You just want the pleasure of Leo there. But Saturn's working through here in your unconscious. It's like there's these old unconscious patterns that are getting in the way. So that's where the struggle is. And during the course of this season, the struggle really deepens because we've got this activity, this awakening that is trying to happen in the 3rd house, communication, siblings, that area.
This might be like frustration that you're kind of carrying in as you go about your routine, like as you go shopping for your food and you drive down the street or you pass your neighbor, and these are things that might serve as kind of irritants that you feel frustrated because there's a lot of heat in this house with Mars coming up to Uranus. Or that's an explosive energy. But the real trick here is that really you're being asked to awaken, to use that part of your life to wake up to whatever this push and pull is between your the 6th and the 12th house, like the bigger picture stuff, and then the minutia. Like you're really being asked to wait. So how can when you're feeling frustrated or aggravated, it's the perfect time to pause and kind of look a little deeper. And what am I really aggravated about here? What is really going on? Because it's really trying to bring something home to you. Not necessarily about your neighbor or your, the thing in your daily life that you're dealing with. It's trying to show you something. And it's sort of a signpost to look at that.
I like how earlier you talked about that Uranus-Mars conjunction as being like, there's a rock got in your shoe.
Yeah.
And that kind of an irritant, that is what it is. And it's like something in your day-to-day environment or something in one of those close but not super intimate relationships is really pushing you to look at that challenge there.
And I think continue to use that analogy. It's kind of like you just want to tear off your shoe and pick up the rock and throw it away, but actually what you need to do is take off your shoe, take a look at the rock. Have a moment, like slow down. Like it's a little more like that. And that's what's going to help you twist it more into an awakening setup instead of just feeling disrupted and angry.
Yeah. One of the things I always say to people when I see Saturn moving through their 12th house, I always think, well, that's such a good time to be in therapy, because Saturn moving through your 12th house is so much about looking inward and learning to understand your own inner patterns. And so it's like, yeah, that moment that you need to have. It's sort of like, I can just see this, you know, you've been going to a therapist for the last 2 years while Saturn's moving through that 7th house. And now the sun's moved into Leo, and you really don't want to deal with going to your damn therapist. But you've got that rock in your shoe that you need to have that moment with. So don't stop going to your therapist just because the sun moved into Leo. You still have some work to do. And on that note, we've got the gift that we can pay attention to, and that will really support us in staying steady and going back to that therapist or whatever it is. But Jupiter moving here through the 2nd house, expanding our understanding of our resources, of our own self-worth. That is really what is going to support us in managing this challenging conversation that's going on.
Yeah. And I think at the core level, it is, you know, your relationship with your self-worth, how you value yourself, how you recognize what you can contribute. And then more on a surface level, it might be, well, maybe you do have enough finances to help float you through a situation. Maybe it's just enough, you know, it's looking at that. And if it isn't, it's how your well of resourcefulness is going to carry you through.
Exactly.
And that's, that's what we're looking at here. So yeah,
that's lovely. So take advantage of that gift without throwing away the opportunity to do the work involved in that T-square. That's, you know, that's always the kind of a trick with trines, is we could just try to ignore everything else because we've got that gift. And you want to make sure that you continue to do the work while you allow that gift of Jupiter to support the process, not to ignore the process. Okay.
Yeah, that's really the good point. So well said.
I think so. Okay, so that's the end of our going through. So anything you want to say at the end? There's probably nobody listening to us at this point except those people with Pisces rising.
I know, that's right. No, I think that's it. Thank you for listening. Like our stuff, or AstroPath on our YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, we didn't even say anything about that to begin with, did we?
That's okay.
Well.
Next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.